I'm at 3137 Gloss Avenue, doing a sanitary lateral inspection for the purchase of a home. We're looking for any structural issues, root intrusion, basically anything that would be of concern to the buyer. Our access here, we were approved by the seller to put an access hole in the line. There is a vertical pipe coming down from the upstairs bathroom, but it did not have a clean out on it, and so now we put a inspection port in, and then we put a expansion plug back in there, and it seals. It's actually rated for like a really high pressure, but in this case sewer lines are not under pressure, but we do that as an overkill. So as we go down, I expect, based off the age of the house, that this will be clay all the way out, and as you see, we hit the bottom. I'm sure you can see that little crack there. That's probably happened when they put the new line in, but that's not an issue. It's not broken and chipped and all the other stuff. It just has a little radial crack in it. As long as it's holding shape, and based off of the placement of it, you shouldn't have any movement. The line comes down and turns right there at that base of that 90. Clay lines are very good. They can withstand a long period of time. This is about the most common thing we see. You see some toilet paper there, it looks like, but it's stuck to a little bit of root intrusion. Root intrusion is very, very common with clay lines due to the fact that you have, like this, you have a connection about every 3 feet or so. It's like 3 to 4 feet apart. And so there's a lot of connections. And so that just gives a lot of opportunity over the years, the packing that they use, for it to kind of break down or shrink, and then it allows some root intrusion. Also to note, just so you can tell, if you see a little bit of it, you can see the edge of the connection there on the pipe. The reason for that is when they put these in, they have pretty large openings on the pipe, on the male or on the female end, and then they put the male end of the pipe from the next connection in there, and it's got some play, so they would use it to get the turns that they desired, and that's why you can see kind of exposed spots as you make these turns. So I also use them, as you can see, where they turn down, but it's very normal. This has all been there since the line was installed. A little bit of old root intrusion here. It looks like there was a tree in the front yard, and so there may be some evidence of root intrusion, but I think the tree is gone now, so shouldn't have to worry about it, but we'll see as we go. So far, the line looks really good structurally. I'm not sure where the sewer main is on this house. It's either in the front or in the rear. That's about the only options you have, but I'm not sure if it's in the road in the front. That's the most common spot for it, but if that is the case, we should be coming up to the line here soon. here we are coming into the main. Now, based off of the footage, I'm thinking this might actually be in the rear. 82 feet from here, 84 feet from the front of the house. If the line was in the street, maybe it's across the street. But I'm actually going to pause the video and I'm going to go see if I can verify that and see if we're out front or in the rear, just for the homeowner's knowledge. Alright, so it actually is in the front. So it just kind of wanders off down the street a little bit, and that's why it had a little bit more length on it than I was expecting based off of the layout. But the line looks really good. Structurally, everything is intact and should be functioning normally. The only thing we found at all was probably due to an old tree that's been removed. There's some evidence of some old root intrusion that did not look to be active in any way. But we'll stop at that spot and just take a short look at it. But as you can see here, all these connections are nice and tight. And if you can tell in the bottom left-hand corner, there's an angle indicator. And in most cases, as we were dropping there, that's how you can tell. As they rotate the line like this, you have a small lip there because they're like rotating one connection into the other, like I explained earlier. But those are not any defects of any kind. It's all normal for the installation of clay lines. See a little bit of like calcite on some of these. So there's a little bit of root intrusion here at 50 feet. And I'll mention that on it, but it's nothing you can really do about that. It's so minor. You might be able to put a root killer down it in, I don't know, a couple of years or something, if you think that there's still some root growth going on from the tree. Sometimes they say that, I don't know how long ago that tree was removed, but depending on the type of trees, sometimes the roots can continue to grow for 5 years or so after the tree is gone. It just kind of depends on the type of tree. But yeah, structurally this line looks really good. And functionally, obviously. And as normal as the root intrusion is with clay lines, this line is about as good as you could expect to get out of something this age with all the root, with that little tiny bit of root intrusion that there is here. And that was those spots too I mentioned earlier about how that's been there since it was installed. That's how they would get the turns, is kind of rotate the line inside the end. And that's why you have like an exposed edge there, but the connection is still intact. So, I've got one right here. Biggest spot of anything is right here, about 9 feet. And it is basically, it looks like just some coating, either some grease or something that's got on some old roots. A lot of times you'll see this on like on old tree roots where they're not actively growing. If they were actively growing, they'd be sticking out of that, and there'd be some exposed edges and reaching out towards the water. But when they become inactive like that, they usually get coated with something, and so they just slowly get coated and don't poke through because they're not actively growing any longer. And So here we are back in the vertical. Back in the drum. So the line looked great. Structurally, everything looked wonderful. The only spot we had at all was at about 9 feet and 50 feet. There's some very, like the 8 feet, it looks like a little bit of root intrusion that is no longer active, and it is and that's why it's coated, like we just talked about. And then at 50 foot, there's a little tiny bit of root intrusion at the bottom of the pipe near the flow line that probably the reason why it is so clean is just because it's in the flow line. I don't think it's active, but as a precaution, I would recommend a reinspection in 3 or 4 years to check root growth and just make sure that those roots are not active any longer. But because the flow line is there, like I just mentioned, it can rinse off all the stuff that would normally coat, like it did at 8 foot. It would keep those roots nice and clean. And so, but if they are active, you would be able to tell by reinspection in a few years to see if they've grown at all since then. So, but yeah, structurally the line looks great. It's open and fully functional at time of inspection. So that'll end the inspection at 3137 Gloss Avenue in Cincinnati, Ohio.